Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
There was a person in my apartment block that says I can get you $100 a month for your script.
A CBC News exclusive. Patients and doctors on the downtown east side claim some pharmacies are paying patients kickbacks to attract more business. And it's not a new issue. Plus,
people matter, and I know that if I was in this situation, I'd want someone to care.
fighting hunger in Ukraine. A Kelowna woman braves the brutal war to deliver food. And
bacteria and viruses found in human waste can make humans ill.
we dive into the risks of contaminated shellfish, what BC researchers are doing to make sure you can still enjoy the seafood and go to the beach.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We begin with the CBC News exclusive. Patients and doctors on Vancouver's downtown east side are calling out bad behavior by some BC pharmacies. They claim some pharmacies are paying patients kickbacks to attract more business. And they argue it's been happening for years. As Leanne Young reports, some are demanding a crackdown.
There are folks here on Vancouver's downtown east side who are speaking out. They say pharmacies are paying patients for their prescriptions kickbacks.
And I probably have about 100 or so people in my practice that are on those medications. I'm probably going to say about 50 of those are probably on connected to a pharmacy that is paying them an incentive.
There was a person in my apartment block that says I can get you $100 a month for your script.
It's a tactic they say pharmacies are using to attract more business, but it's not actually allowed.
I say I don't pay. I say it's illegal. You go somewhere else.
The client, the patient whose interests are paramount, not your bottom line.
You might think this is new, but the issue has history here in BC. CBC's undercover cameras first caught kickbacks happening in 2008.
Are they giving out money out there?
That's for people that got prescriptions.
He goes in with his Tylenol 3 prescription, asks the manager for money. She says,
Just $5.
she laughs. The pharmacist gives him $5, what doctors call the kickback.
Since that reporting, there have been lots of changes. Investigations, stiffer policies, and pharmacies are now very clearly banned from giving any incentives. But guess what? The community tells us cash kickbacks are still happening. Patients with lots of daily prescriptions mean bigger profits because pharmacies can bill pharmacare for more money. And today, many pharmacies are delivering meds right to patients' doors, but the same concerns are still there. As this next person tells us, we've agreed not to use his name or show his face because tensions in this neighborhood over this issue could threaten his safety. How much were you getting paid?
Well, $120 a month, 2 triplicates and an any-arm script, like say Dilaudid and methadone.
How did you get into that? How did you even hear about it?
Pharmacist assistants or pharmacists, they'll actually sit outside other pharmacies and in their cars and wait for people to come out and then approach them and say, if you come to our pharmacy, we'll give you $120.
When's the last time it happened to you?
2 months ago, I said I wasn't going to do it anymore because they screwed my medication.
How did they give you the money?
The person gets the medication and they get handed this wrapped up piece of tape, and inside it is cash. It puts it all on the shoulders of the delivery guy.
But why have you decided that you wanted to speak out against it?
The people down here are getting controlled. They're broke, they're homeless. These people, they prey on them, say they're going to give them $120 a month. They need that money, so they get it. The medication is sometimes given wrong, the wrong amount's given. They don't care.
I've spoken to more than a dozen people in this community about pharmacies paying patients, nurses, doctors, activists, and patients just like the one you just heard from. He wants it to stop because he feels people are being taken advantage of. But other patients say they need the money and they don't want it to disappear. The health professionals we heard from are concerned, though. They say it's unethical and can be bad for patient care. Most were afraid to speak to us on camera. They're worried about backlash. But we did find a couple who were willing to talk to us on the record. I'm about to head to Garlane Pharmacy over to talk to Gary Sue. He's been running this pharmacy since the 1980s, and he says there's been a recent wave of pharmacies that are paying their patients, and it's affecting his business too. So what is the situation that you're seeing right now?
Lots of pharmacies on this area and other areas too, like in Fraser Streets and in Burnaby. In fact, they phone us for transfer. The patient want to transfer out of this pharmacy to another pharmacy who have incentives. So we can't do anything. So
How do you know that they have incentives?
I ask them. I say, how much they pay?
You ask who, the pharmacist or the patients?
I ask the patient. They say, oh, I'm getting $20 a week. I don't pay, but I just want to extract some more information from them, and I was told.
How does it make you feel knowing that there are other people who have this unfair advantage?
You can't do anything because the patient has the right to transfer it to any pharmacy they want, right? So we comply.
Right, you comply, but what you're hoping for is some action.
Yeah, exactly. Right, some action. Right. Corrective action. If the college you do something about it, that situation will not exist today, right? But right now it still exists. That means it's not being done correctly or inefficiently or not being done.
What Gary C. was referring to there is action from the College of Pharmacists of BC. They issue licenses and regulate the industry. He wants to see more disciplinary action by the college to prevent pharmacy payouts. I reached out to the college and the BC Ministry of Health several times to ask about the issue and to find out what's being done to enforce and uphold the law. But both declined interviews, only sending us statements outlining some of the work that they've done. The college says it has a long-standing concern about the negative effects of incentive programs. In 2010, it did an undercover investigation of 9 pharmacies. As a result, the health ministry revoked pharmacare billing rights for 6 of those. 1 pharmacist lost their license. 3 years later, the college tightened the rules, banning any incentive programs. And in 2015, conducted another round of undercover investigations. The last time any pharmacy lost its billing privileges over incentives was in March of 2016, more than 8 years ago. And for the frontline doctors we're about to meet, they say action is long overdue.
That was 20 years ago that I was on the CBC talking about the same issue. It hasn't stopped from 20 years ago.
I'm an outreach physician, or was an outreach physician, so I'm in the buildings and on the streets and so forth. And the pharmacists, or the delivery people, who aren't always necessarily pharmacists, they're going into buildings and saying, come to us, we'll offer you this much money, putting out pamphlets, we'll pay you this if you bring your buddies and get them to switch, and so forth. And so this is all over the place. So that behavior feels very unprofessional.
I probably have about 100 or so people in my practice that are on those medications. I'm probably going to say about 50 of those are probably on connected to a pharmacy that is paying them an incentive. There's a bit of tension sometimes. It's like they're getting paid, so it creates just an extra layer of resistance sometimes to stopping medications.
We have patients who look like they, for example, would do very well on injectable Suboxone. They don't have to go to a pharmacy every day, it's once a month. And the pharmacies have said, well, we're not giving you the $30 a week or the $100 a month or whatever, unless you go back to methadone. Pharmacy is actually interfering with their physician and the patient's choice.
I sort of put this as a systems level problem that we've created a strong financial incentive for this format to happen. There isn't significant enough oversight to prevent this practice, clearly.
Well, I'd like a new college of pharmacy that has some guts. I mean, what is their point? Really, what is their point?
So you've heard from patients, pharmacists, and doctors, all of them with different concerns about why pharmacies that pay its customers should be stopped. They say it's preying on vulnerable patients, puts law-abiding pharmacies at a disadvantage, and interferes in healthcare decisions. And the practice itself, as we've talked about, is legally banned. So why does it still happen? I spoke to a number of advocates in the community about this issue, and they were reluctant to talk to us about it. They say with so many people here living in extreme poverty, if there was a crackdown, that bit of extra cash would disappear. Because for all its potential harms, some see benefits to the kickbacks.
Part of me has become a little cynical over the years, like, yeah, I'll see it sort of hit the media cycle again. Do I expect a substantial change in the duration, or do I expect to see another reporter in another 5-10 years back with the same story? Probably the latter would be if I was a betting person.
Divers have now recovered the bodies of 2 men who were working on the Baltimore bridge that collapsed yesterday morning after a cargo ship crashed into it. Now, the U.S. federal safety investigators are now examining the Voyage data recorder from that ship.
It's getting this perishable evidence that we need, the components, the electronic logs, any sort of paperwork, the pictures we need to take, anything we need to identify to take from the bridge structure itself.
The 2 bodies were found inside a truck below the water. The search for 4 other workers has been paused because of conditions on the water. The ship lost power and issued a distress call moments before it hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge. But it was moving too fast to change course. The bridge is a major commuter and commercial transport link, and the Port of Baltimore is critical to North America's supply chain. BC is also a hub for vessels of all sizes. Following the Baltimore Bridge collapse, some people here have questions about the risks of ship crashes on critical infrastructure here. Our Benit Brach looks into what's being done to protect key bridges locally.
This tragic bridge collapse in Baltimore is what experts call an unusual incident, but it's something that also hits close to home.
So Vancouver is home to Canada's busiest port. Massive ships like this one make their way in our waters every day. So what are some of the things being done to prevent ship strikes here?
The more vessels that we see, the greater the risk could be. I mean, again, this is a very, very small risk. We are well on this path of looking at protective measures.
Take the Lionsgate Bridge, for example. It spans one of BC's busiest waterways. According to this 2018 report, about 4,500 vessel trips pass under the bridge every year. That's projected to go up to about 6,300 trips per year over the next 25 years. That risk assessment found the South Steel Tower to be a key vulnerability to vessel strikes. But State says one solution in the works is adding rock berm, mini island of rocks that protect the bridge from being hit.
Because of that sort of steep angle of the rocks, when something hits it, it can only go so far through it before it actually just gets grounded, essentially.
The North Tower had rock berm placed in the 80s. It's not clear when the rock berm will be complete for the South Tower.
And a lot of influencing factors that need to be well understood to ensure that we have the appropriate design.
The Ironworkers Memorial Bridge is also getting updated by adding protective columns called dolphins.
Essentially, if something were to hit it, it would get deflected away from it and also absorb any impact or help lessen the energy that was going through it.
Now, neither of these bridges have had catastrophic collisions, but there have been other incidents in BC's history. In 1979, the second narrow CN rail bridge was struck by a cargo ship carrying logs during heavy fog. That bridge was closed for 6 months. And in 2011, a gravel barge struck the Queensboro Railway Bridge in New Westminster. It was inoperable for 2 months, causing major traffic disruptions. Now, the Vancouver Port Authority says one of its mitigation strategies is to do simulations with pilots in case there is ever a power outage on a ship. Overall, experts say it's important to keep assessing the risk of ship strikes.
I think it's high time that we learn from this incident and make sure that our existing infrastructure are well in position to withstand not only this kind of ship collisions that we observe today, but other kinds of human or natural disasters that's happening around the world.
Proactive efforts to build better resilience in these coastal waters. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC's public safety minister says the province has now seized more than $250,000 in cash and luxury items from a safety deposit box linked to a high-profile crypto fraud case. The contents belong to a co-founder of the controversial company Quadriga. As Mira Baines explains, the government has filed an unexplained wealth order to try to seize the items.
The BC government is going after the contents of a safety deposit box in the name of Michael Patron, a co-founder of Quadriga cryptocurrency exchange. The unexplained wealth order was filed in BC Supreme Court, but follows an international tale of intrigue that was the subject of a Netflix documentary and a CBC podcast. When the cryptocurrency exchange collapsed, its clients lost more than $200 million. The company crumbled in 2018 after its founder is believed to have died in India. Gerald Cotton left a trail of missing millions, lawsuits, investigations, and wild conspiracy theories. The provincial government's lawsuit goes after Quadriga co-founder Michael Patron. He was last known to be in Thailand. Back in 2021, BC's forfeiture office seized a safety deposit box in Patron's name. It contained $250,000 in cash, 45 gold bars, 4 luxury watches, and a pistol. These assets were in a box at CBC Vancouver and are now being held at BC RCMP headquarters in Surrey. Minister of Public Safety Mike Farnworth says the Quadriga fraud left many Canadians short of their life savings. It's estimated Quadriga Currency Exchange duped over 76,000 clients. Ernst & Young, Quadriga's bankruptcy trustee, was able to recover $46 million of the $250 million owed to investors. This is the third unexplained wealth order filed in BC since legislative changes last year allowed their use. They require people to explain how they acquired their wealth and property if there is suspicion of criminal activity. The Provincial Forfeiture Office takes assets from crime and uses it for victim services and crime and hate prevention programs. The Public Safety Minister says eligible victims who have suffered financial loss can apply for compensation. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
The federal government is starting to roll out its next budget, promising new help for renters and trying to gain the support of more young voters. Marina von Stackelberg now with what's being offered and why the stakes are so high.
This is one room full of boxes. Every other room in the apartment is pretty much the same.
Etienne Domingue and his partner just moved cities, not because they wanted to.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
They were forced out for renovations and then priced out of the Ottawa region.
Having to pay double or triple wasn't really conceivable. So we made the difficult choice to relocate.
Great to be back in Vancouver. This place is a second home to me.
In the most expensive city to rent a home, the Prime Minister offered a new plan to protect tenants.
We're focused on fairness. Fairness for renters, fairness for young people, fairness for the future.
Ottawa will give $15 million to legal aid groups that help tenants. It also wants banks to consider a person's history of paying rent on time toward their credit score. And the government promises a renter's bill of rights. Landlords would have to tell a potential new tenant what they've charged for a place in the past.
This is going to come down to teeth and enforcement. I noticed he said that they will call on landlords. Okay, well, what does that mean?
Ottawa says its new measures will help the 2/3 of young Canadians who rent.
Your frustration is understandable. This isn't your fault, and it doesn't need to be your future.
Ministers fanned out across the country to echo that message.
What we're here to do today is to talk a little bit about renters.
Gen Z and millennials have in the past been key to the Liberal government's election wins. But polls show younger Canadians are moving en masse to the Conservatives.
Among those that said they voted Liberal in the last election and would vote Conservative today, they are far more likely to say housing is a top issue.
The Liberal government will keep trying to show it's listening to Canadians' concerns. And with the federal budget less than 3 weeks away, the Prime Minister says more announcements are coming. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
BC's Crown prosecutors are sharing more details about how often those accused of crimes are released on bail. Between November 2022 and December 2023, the BC Prosecution Service collected data on almost 4,800 bail hearings. Prosecutors asked for jail for accused offenders in about a quarter of all cases. Judges granted bail in more than half of them. BC's Attorney General says those numbers could soon shift, though, after Canada's criminal code was changed earlier this year.
So in January 2024, it's now the law of the land to have more directed bail policies for repeat violent offenders to seek detention. And I think those better tools in the justice system will hopefully show results.
Reforms to Canada's bail system now put the onus on the accused to show why they ought to be released. Before, it was up to the Crown to prove why they should stay behind bars. The war in Ukraine is now grinding into its third year, and a Kelowna woman is doing her part to try to fight hunger. Laura Allen made numerous trips to that country to deliver meals. She estimates she's handed out $3 million in the last year alone. Our Brady Strachan spoke with Laura this week and shared that with Leanne Young.
Well, Liam, when I spoke to her, she was in the city of Zaporizhia. That's an area that has seen intense fighting between Russian and Ukrainian forces over the last 2 years. And she says when she goes into more of the rural areas, she sees houses that have their roofs blown off, seniors living in basements, and just the devastation of the war around her as she goes into these areas delivering food aid to people who need it.
Wow. And so how is she actually helping out? What is she doing over there?
She's taking dehydrated soup packets, and it's made by groups that take produce here, and gleaner groups that take it and make these dehydrated food packets. And she says she's able to hand out millions of meals each year. She says to her, meeting the seniors and delivering this food is really what drives her to go back again and again.
People matter, and I know that if I was in this situation, I'd want someone to care. And it's sometimes not even so much about the soup mix, it's more about being seen and being hugged and seen. And if they even get that one moment where, you're exchanging, you're giving them food and a hug, it's just a little bit of light in the dark.
And Leanne, Laura says that she'll be there until the end of next month. And then after a quick return trip to Canada, she's got her sights set on delivering food to Gaza.
Wow. Okay. Some heroic work being done. Thanks for that story with Brady Strachan over in Kelowna.
Leanne Young and Brady Strachan earlier today. To sports now, Vancouver Canucks goaltender Thatcher Demko has been placed on long-term injured reserve after a knee injury earlier this month. So far, Demko has missed 6 games as the starting netminder. Placing him on reserve means he'll need to miss a total of 10 games before he can return. He'll be eligible to get back to the ice on April 6th, but it's still unclear if he will be able to do that with his injury. Canucks general manager Patrick Alvin says this move clears a spot for Surrey forward Arshdeep Bains to join the roster. Darius Madavi is back with a first look at our weather. We went from rain, we see blue sky out there.
Yeah, it's not so bad. No. Lots of blue sky, actually. That's going to be the story for the next few days. Some cloud is going to build back in tonight across parts of the south coast, but then by tomorrow morning, pretty much everywhere on the coast, we're going to be seeing some sunshine by around noon, but it may still be a little bit showery in the early morning hours. Now, in terms of satellite and radar, you can start to see here some of that rain and snow starting to clear out, as well as that cloud, which is why we have that beautiful sunshine, and much of the island does as well. If we zoom out to the rest of the province, you can see a lot of those showers also broke into parts of the interior, those higher elevation flurries, so a little bit of snow added to the snowpack, as well as in parts of central BC. Now keep in mind the rest of the province up here, again, no radar coverage, but a little circle here around Prince George, so we can see that there is a little bit of precipitation in the further northern parts of the province as well. If we take a look at what's still coming, much more calm than what we were looking at yesterday when we were looking at earlier this morning, because you can see mostly just those scattered showers, those flurries, and then even that cloud pretty much clears out across the province by tomorrow night. By Saturday, we're looking dry, we're looking sunny almost everywhere. So if we zoom in to Vancouver now, you can see by tonight, again, some sun, maybe some showers returning later this evening, and then overnight, a little bit more rain before tomorrow morning, clearing up by around noon for what should be a beautiful sunny day.
Okay. We won't hold you to it, but we'll check. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, Dan.
Some Indigenous students on BC's Sunshine Coast are taking their learning outside the normal classroom. The district and Tla'amin Nation are offering a land-based learning program while also covering core subjects. Claire Palmer was in the Cathet region to see them in action.
Hunting, fishing, social studies, and English classes, all subjects covered in the Gidja program.
I think that it's this beautiful process that, we're just trying to give them access to the things that they should have had in the first place.
Gidja, or GIJE, is an acronym for Guided Indigenized Journey to Excellence. It's also a word that means land. Program students learn life skills like wilderness first aid while also earning high school credits. It's offered in partnership between the Kla'amin Nation and the school district in the Powell River area.
Hopefully that innovation trickles out to the rest of the district, where it's hard to break out of that system that's so entrenched and so colonial in its framework. And all of these steps have been taken to move us in a good direction.
There have been different versions of them over the years. The current program is led by Corey Gordon, who's a member of the Beaver Lake Cree Nation. He says the program aims to increase graduation rates for Indigenous students, as well as increasing participation and attendance.
Kind of when I started to design, my iteration of this program, it had ran before as a traditional skill builder program, ran in the community, and when I took it over, I kind of designed it around, building resiliency, identity, and self-esteem in kids.
Elders in the community have long worked towards a land-based learning program meant to validate Indigenous knowledge in a way that is relevant and meets the needs of students.
For me, I never had that. So when I come in here and I greet them every morning, it really uplifts me. And the kids are responding that way. So every day that I come in, it's exciting for me to see that they're going to be doing something that I never had an opportunity to.
Some students keep coming back for more. Memphis Dominic has graduated from the program, but helps out when he can.
I honestly just like the vibe of all the students here and everything like that. And also, every time I come here, there's usually something else I'm still learning new.
The hope is that the techniques initiated here will become more widely adopted, continuing reconciliation work through education. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Kla'amin.
Still ahead, a BC shellfish is at risk. And the reason might change your mind about an oyster buffet. Our science specialist Darius Madavi will be back to break it down for us after this. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream tonight. A groundbreaking solar heating community near Calgary is facing some big decisions. Drake Landing once led North America when it started powering its homes with solar energy almost 2 decades ago. But as Brian Labby explains, the future of the neighborhood is now in doubt.
We're here in Okotoks, just south of Calgary, at a place called Drake Landing. The community was a one-of-a-kind project, unique in the world, and it won many awards. It's a solar energy neighborhood. Heat from the sun is collected and stored underground and then used to heat the homes through the winter. It's a large-scale solar seasonal storage district. Over the course of nearly 2 decades, it provided at least 90% of the community's home heating requirements. Provincial and federal governments chipped in several $1 million for the project. But 20 years on, there is a problem. It's starting to fail. It's a blow for the people who bought into this community.
I just thought it was a really good plan, something that I thought would be long-lasting, also be energy saving as well. It'd be cheaper to heat.
Some people have already pulled the plug on using solar energy to heat their homes.
They had to replace their air exchanger and they put in natural gas furnace. There's a couple people. So things are starting to deteriorate a little bit.
The system was so unique when it was put together that finding replacement parts is almost impossible. There are 800 solar collectors on these continuous garage roofs. The energy is stored in 2 places, in short-term thermal storage tanks inside this building and also underground, right here, in 144 boreholes dug 37 meters deep. It's drawn up during the cold winter months and used to heat the 52 homes in this community. The Drake Landing company, which manages the community, is now considering several options, including decommissioning the entire system. Replacing the solar energy system is an option, and so too is reverting to natural gas furnaces. Natural Resources Canada, which helped create the project, says it's encouraging developers to consider the future of projects during the design phase, and that will help them develop appropriate business models to support end-of-life or refurbishment of assets, as their financial contribution to Drake Landing did not extend to end-of-life considerations. The Drake Landing company says the health, safety, and comfort of the homeowners is the top priority, as it considers all of the different options.
As it sits right now, it looks like we're going to be going backwards and having to put natural gas furnaces into our homes. And I don't think that would be the best thing for our project. Right now, we don't know a clear path regarding that. We have asked that they look at green energy, whether it be a heat pump with a natural gas backup. That would be a preferred type of system.
The community now waits, wondering what will become of their neighborhood, once considered the future of sustainable home heating. Brian Labby, CBC News, Okotoks.
BC has a robust shellfish industry, providing us delicacies like oysters, clams, scallops, and mussels, among other things. But due to the nature of these filter feeders, the industry often faces closures because of contaminants in the water. Now a team of BC researchers is developing a new testing method that could help harvesting areas reopen faster. Our Darius Madavi is here to explain how it works. Darius, first of all, what kind of contaminants are we talking about here?
Poop. Yeah, seriously, poop is a huge issue for the shellfish industry. And I know what you're thinking, Darius, the ocean is chock full of poop. And that's true, but that doesn't tell us where that poop is or whose poop it is. I think we can all agree that when we go swimming, the amount of fecal matter in that particular spot is important, and that's what current water quality testing can analyze. But it does miss something key, where that poop comes from and who. Because as one of the project leaders told us, not all poop is created equal.
In general, the type of fecal pollution that we're most concerned about is human fecal material, because the bacteria and viruses found in human waste can make humans ill.
Understanding where the fecal matter in the water comes from is especially important when it comes to shellfish, because they are such good filter feeders. An adult oyster can filter over 150 liters of seawater per day. But that means they are also really good at holding on to whatever they filter, including toxins or contaminants that could make us sick. So it's not the shellfish themselves we're worried about, it's those of us eating them.
So how does this test actually work?
It's really cool. It relies on the fact that different species will have different bacteria in their guts, and those bacteria have different DNA that can help us identify them. Fortunately, a lot of those bacteria end up in fecal matter. In human stool, for instance, we're talking hundreds of billions of bacteria per gram of poop. You might think that's gross, but to scientists, it just sounds like a lot of untapped data.
What we're hoping to do is to use molecular methods. So these are methods that are testing for the DNA present in bacteria to tell us what the potential source is. It's not absolute. It's not like pinpointing exactly where it's coming from. It gives us a sense of where it might be coming from. And what that helps us do is remediate the issue.
They're going to be piloting this in BC's most important shellfish harvesting area along the east coast of Vancouver Island between Deep Cove and Comox, where as much as 50% of the industry's revenue comes from. So it's an important area to protect, which is why Genome BC, various provincial government departments, Malahat Nation, and the Industry Association have teamed up on this.
So let's say we do this testing, we get some results back. What happens after that?
Well, even though it might not tell us the exact species, this testing can absolutely point us in the right direction and quickly narrow down the possible sources. Plus, since non-human animals' poop don't pose as much of a threat to us, that could allow harvesting areas to reopen sooner.
If we can put a finger on what the source is by saying, yeah, it's not human, it is of bird origin, it would definitely go a long way towards addressing how we manage that contamination.
So potentially a big deal for the shellfish industry, but even for you and me, Dan, who are very much not shellfish harvesters, this technology could improve our lives too. Let me ask you this. Do you like the beach?
Indeed.
Do you like swimming in the summer?
Always.
Yeah. Do you find it frustrating when your favorite beach is closed because there's too much poop in the water?
Yeah.
Yeah, most of us do. So this testing, beyond keeping our supply of shellfish steady and letting us know how grossed out to be, could help you get back to doggy paddling in the ocean as quick as possible, Dan.
Science and climate specialist Darius Madavi always brings us the hot poop. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
New details about a BC man charged with multiple sexual assaults of children in Ontario. Our CBC News investigation and his connection to that region after this.
If you were a teenager or 20-something in the late 90s or early 2000s, chances are you remember these. The lightweight, colorful pants produced by Canadian-owned Modres were a rave and streetwear staple. The founder and owner Steven Saldebus sold them far and wide, even bringing them to Woodstock in 1999.
It's my selling domain. We've developed so much demand by the way we've marketed the product that we're finding it hard to sort of keep up. We're not the perfectly, efficiently flowing company.
Like so many trends, the Modres craze did not last long. The bus sought bankruptcy protection and shut down the company in 2003. But that wasn't the end of the story. 6 years later, a lifeline came in the form of a cash injection from Dragon's Den.
You have to leave here with the money you asked for. So $200,000, $100,000 of it equity, and $100,000 as an operating line.
The bus tried to rebrand Modres as eco-friendly performance wear. But that did not last long either. The new incarnation of Modres was short-lived, and the bus soon moved west, and on with his life. In the summer of 2022, he put the brand up for sale, and caught the attention of a long-time Modres loyalist.
My husband, he was a Modres super fan. I have been with him for 18 years, and every so often he would tell me and remind me how great they are. So Alex had seen this announcement, and he said, "Could you imagine if we owned Modres?" And my jaw dropped because I thought, you think he would choose us?
He did. That's how Alexander and Zoe Curry from Sexsmith, Alberta, became new owners of the brand they loved for so long. And they aren't the only superfans out there.
The amount of joy and feedback that we get from Canada, it almost gets me emotional at times. It's an amazing thing to bring an amazing thing back to my country.
We never thought that we could make Modres better. We just wanted it back. We knew that, there's fans like Alex out there who had loved these pants for so long and wish that they could buy them again.
Retail experts say that relying on sentimental appeal alone might be risky.
I think that nostalgia factor and the brand awareness from those of, in the mid-1990s when Modres was a big brand, that I think could propel the brand to a certain degree. But I think for any brand to succeed, say in the next 10 years, you're also going to have to cater to a younger demographic that's going to be growing up.
Now, in their second year as owners, the Currys say business has been good, but turning a profit isn't their only goal.
It's not about trying to get rich, it's just trying to have something to be proud of.
Dennis Cofton, CBC News, Grande Prairie.
A BC man accused of historical sexual assaults on children in Ontario appeared in court today. It's the first public glimpse in decades of a suspect in the notorious Woodland Rapist case. Richard Neal claims he's innocent, and police have not disclosed how they found him. But as Thomas Dagla shows us, Neal does have links to the region where the attacks occurred.
It was a fall evening 30 years ago. A 10-year-old boy was lured into this wooded area near Toronto, tied to a tree, and attacked. One of 3 sexual assaults on children in the 1990s linked to a man known only as the Woodland Rapist. For decades, this police composite sketch was the public's only image of the attacker. Now, all these years later, a man has appeared in court charged with those crimes.
He was shocked at the arrest and at the allegations.
Richard Neal's legal team says he has no knowledge of the crimes. 64-year-old Neal is facing 20 counts, including kidnapping and sexual assault with a weapon. The charges against him coming decades after officers canvassed neighborhoods and made dire public warnings about a child sex predator on the loose.
We have to get this person off the street.
Then Detective Sergeant Graham Barnes led the investigation in the mid-90s. We reached him all these years later.
I had the
the opportunity to read all of the witness statements at the time, the victim statements, if you wish, at the time, and clearly they were all devastated by it.
While police say Neil was from BC, we visited the Toronto condo that court records list as his home and found packages sent to him here recently at this address.
Very quiet guy, never say much.
CBC News has learned Neil's late mother worked at the University of Waterloo in the early 90s when the attacker struck nearby. Where the accused spent that time and how police were led to him all remain a mystery. Unanswered questions that may yet come out in court.
Neil is set to return to court next week for a bail hearing. His lawyer says he's innocent. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Brampton, Ontario.
Members of diaspora communities appeared before a public inquiry in Ottawa today. They testified about how they believe foreign state actors have preyed on them. The inquiry into foreign interference is investigating meddling in Canada's past 2 federal elections and whether it had an impact. More now from Ashley Burke.
Like many in the Chinese
diaspora communities say they're the real victims of foreign interference and want this public inquiry to do something about it.
It touches your life. It touches your safety. It touches your security. It touches your family comfort. It touches your career. It touches your future. You don't get sleep.
They say they're being watched, followed, and intimidated by foreign proxies on Canadian soil, just for being critical of their home country's human rights records.
They collect information, they monitor your schedule, and they send that information to the public safety in China, and they coordinate together. And them in China reach out to your family members, and take hostage of your family members and force you to do something against your will here in Canada.
Their testimony unfolding at this inquiry investigating to what extent China, Russia, and other countries interfered in the past 2 federal elections, and if it had an impact.
The Commission must walk a very fine line.
The commissioner presiding over it says she already held 6 hearings behind closed doors. The evidence, she ruled, would have compromised national security, but wants this process to be as transparent as possible.
Some people will feel that too much information is being kept secret, while others may feel that too much information is being disclosed.
The inquiry started to dig into the threat by hearing from those directly impacted.
The community doesn't feel safe, and they're worried.
Diaspora groups describe community members being denied consular services by their home country, facing travel bans and even criminal charges abroad for protesting in Canada.
They posted something on social media or engaged in some sort of activism against the Russian government. They have criminal charges laid against them, and then this becomes an additional obstacle when they attempt to gain citizenship. So it is a major threat.
The inquiry will hear from about 40 witnesses over the next 2 weeks, including those from intelligence agencies, political parties, and the Prime Minister himself. The first report is due in May. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Magician tricks are usually amusing, though not always. One man recently lost an expensive watch thanks to sleight of hand. When he opened the envelope the buyer had handed him, he realized the person had switched out the cash for coupons. As Kwabena Ojuro found out, the magic trick is pretty easy to do.
Moi, j'avais la 126, 116.
Laurent Mattel has been flipping Rolex watches for the past 10 years. He doesn't like to make sales in public, preferring to meet people at his home, which is equipped with cameras.
I asked him to come over here because I have a camera, so I'm protecting myself this way. And that was good because I have this guy on camera. So this is how I prefer to deal. But unfortunately, this guy was a magician.
In November, when he sold a watch for $15,000, the buyer arrived wearing a baseball cap and a medical mask. But Mattel says his polite manner reassured him.
You can see this magic pocket is right here.
The man was carrying a black pouch. He took an envelope of money out, removed an elastic, and gave it to Mattel, who counted the money before the man put it back in the envelope.
He left. I put the money in my desk, and 1 hour after, I just went in the envelope, to open it and put the money somewhere else. This is how I realized I was the victims.
Magician John Vincelli demonstrates how easily the switch could happen.
And let me just give you the elastic.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Did I leave it in the bag? No, here it is, under the bag. All right, here you go.
Thank you very much.
No problem. I literally just did this. Came back out, no, it's not there, and oh, it's under the bag.
But is it a theft or a fraud? After initially approving his claim, Mattel's insurance company later disputed it, arguing he had handed over the watch willingly. Eventually, Mattel did receive $10,000 compensation. He says he's heard from others on Facebook who believe they have been duped by the same trickster.
I'm still upset about what happened to me because I know the thief is still on the road.
Mattel is hoping to get his Rolex back, but he says he's learned a lesson. From now on, he'll only do transactions in a safe zone outside a local police station. Cubino Duro, CBC News, Blainville, Quebec.
Coming up, we're learning more about the effects of climate change on urban wildlife, including threats to local animals. Stick around.
Ticks are more active when the weather is better, like after 4 degrees Celsius.
Have you seen an increase in tick activity over the last couple of years?
Yes, definitely. There is a significant increase in tick population. Ticks are moving really fast. They're covering 45 kilometers per year in Canada. We are also seeing more and more ticks are coming into the urban population too. So best is to avoid contact in those kind of areas, keeping your grass short in your backyard, right? Make sure you clean your leaves and stuff. So these kind of things will definitely prevent some exposure to your pets.
When should we be checking our pets for ticks? After every walk?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah?
If you're taking your dog on a leash walk, keep them on a padway and stuff instead of running them around into the bushes and tall grass. The second thing, when you bring them in, check them thoroughly, look for any ticks. Ticks come in different sizes. They can be as small as a few millimeter, and if they're fully engorged with the blood, then they can go up to 1.5 centimeter. You can use some tweezers, and you can go to some vet clinics. They also have some tick plucking instruments too, that they can give it to you, and you can use those ones. Put the gloves on, take the tick out completely from their mouth. When they're digging into the skin on the pet or yourself, remove them and put them in a container. And you can freeze them. They can die with the freezing after a few days. Or you can put the alcohol into the container and then clean the area with the alcohol if it's on you or your pet. And you can also submit the ticks to the veterinary clinics, and they can send it to the lab. There's some government programs. We can check them for Lyme disease, or there's some ticks who carry the Lyme disease, or if they're infected or not.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond. Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
New Canadian research shows climate change could drastically change urban wildlife. As Emily Chung reports, some familiar local animals could become scarce and other unwanted pests may flourish.
To make sure they're
This team at the Toronto Zoo works to protect baby Blandings turtles.
We have the little guys up here, and then they'll go bigger down that way.
In the wild, they're threatened by predators like raccoons or dogs. But there's one threat they may not be able to escape.
Climate change is a very big factor for these guys. It's affecting kind of their breeding cycle.
New Canadian research reveals the animals we share our cities with may have to respond to the changing climate by moving in or out.
The nature that we interact with is the nature in our backyards, it's on the streets, it's in the local parks.
The research looked at 2,000 kinds of wildlife in 60 cities across North America, modeling where they could live in the climate we could expect by the year 2100. The amount of change is shocking, says this researcher.
Seeing hundreds of species moving in, hundreds of species moving out.
It also says some of Canada's largest cities will see the biggest changes. A warmer, wetter climate driving out some species while bringing in hundreds of new ones. This Toronto pest control company says it's already seeing a boom in one critter.
We used to get maybe a few calls per year. People didn't even know how possums look like. They migrated to the north, due to obviously the climate change and urbanization.
Other newcomers are much smaller and bring public health concerns with them.
I think we need to get much more prepared for the spread of zoonotic diseases that are always more prevalent in warmer, wetter areas.
Big changes to our urban wildlife creates challenges, but the new study found we can keep changes less drastic if we do more to mitigate climate change. Emily Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Darius Madavi joins us now with a complete forecast. What do you make of that study? It's quite interesting.
It is, yeah. And what's really interesting is where you are in both Canada and the U.S. really depends on what you're going to see. So for more southern cities in the U.S., they're going to see a lot of loss of different animals. So we're talking hundreds of species lost and only a few gained, whereas most Canadian cities are actually going to see a pretty big boom in the species that they have at home. So you can see here, this is under a high emission scenario. So if we made no climate action and we just continued to have unsustainable development, you can see that we actually see in some cities as much as doubling the number of animals that they have there, but losing some really important ones. So in some cases, they could be losing the animals that make the city feel like home, like Toronto. If they lost Blue Jays, might have to rename the sports team. But fortunately, it's not all bad, because under medium emission scenarios, we see less change, we see less of those animals lost, still many gained, which is also not necessarily a good thing. Lots of diseases coming with some of these animals, like ticks and mosquitoes. And if we were to have aggressive climate action and we were to stop developing unsustainably more high density development, we could see minimal change. Still many animals moving into Canada, but if you're a climate refugee, it's a good place to be for all sorts of species. Now, turning to BC, where we do have not our climate's changing, but the weather certainly is. Well, our climate is also changing. Bad segue. We're going to see all that cloud starting to clear out over the next day or so, and then we really just have a sunny day across the province, maybe a little bit of snow coming at the end of the weekend for the northwest, maybe the southeast as well. For the most part, just clear and sunny. In terms of temperatures, in the south, we're pretty consistently going to get warm and stay warm. A little bit of fluctuation happening in the north over the next few days, but generally, we're going to be decently warm across the province right through the Easter weekend and into Monday, where we might see a little bit more cloud move into the more southern, along the south coast and Vancouver Island, but overall, not much to talk about. Tonight still looks like lots of activity, but these are really just scattered showers and flurries, as you can tell if you're in Victoria or the east coast of the island, or here in the Lower Mainland. You're not seeing much activity, just blue skies. And then into tomorrow, a very similar story. A little bit of activity lingering, but for instance, along the south coast, Vancouver Island, for the most part, all that rain finishes up by tomorrow morning, late morning, and then we have a clear and sunny day, and then nothing but sun in the forecast, man.
Oh, nice looking weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
When we return, we speak with a BC man who made history by being the first Canadian to finish one of the world's hardest marathons and hear how he's recovering. Stick around.
One, two, three, four. Gale set in, temperatures fall. It can slow you down into a crawl. The sound when the power goes out, it's so quiet and so loud. The wind's blowing in somehow it could knock your house down. The big waves of murky waters, snow beating sons and daughters. Hold on a little longer, you're stronger than you know. Stronger than you know. I know that feeling of fear and doubt. You're stuck inside. The sound when the power goes out, it's so quiet and so loud. The wind's blowing in somehow it could knock your house down. The big waves of murky waters, snow beating sons and daughters. Hold on a little longer, you're stronger than you know. The sound when the power goes out, it's so quiet and so loud. The wind's blowing in somehow it could knock your house down. The big waves of murky waters, snow being sons and daughters. Hold on a little longer, you're stronger than you know. You always need more like me, there's never enough time. I know you got nobody, there's a light on the line. You got nothing but troubles on your worry mind. I know you got nobody. The sound when the power goes out, it's so quiet and so loud. The wind's blowing in somehow it could knock your house down. The big waves of murky waters, snow beating sons and daughters. Hold on a little longer, you're stronger than you know. The sound when the power goes out, it's so quiet and so loud. The wind's blowing in somehow it could knock your house down. And big waves of murky waters, snow beating sons and daughters. Hold on a little longer, you're stronger than you know. You're stronger than you know. Hold on a little longer, you're stronger than you know. You're stronger than you know. Hold on a little longer, you're stronger than you know.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On April 13th, join CBC at the Vancouver Vasaki Festival. Drop by the CBC Vancouver tent, say hi, and win some fun CBC prizes. The Vasaki Festival continues in Surrey on April 20th. The event features some of the biggest celebrations outside India with colorful floats, community performers, and live music, all rich in culture. More info at cbc.ca/BC.
A young American woman has accomplished the feat of a lifetime. Lexi Alford is the first person to travel the globe in an all-electric vehicle.
Driving more than 30,000 kilometers on 6 continents and through 27 countries was such a unique experience, so much diversity.
Alfred finished her trek in France after driving across 6 continents in an electric Ford Explorer. During her half-year journey, she contended with freezing temperatures, power outages in Africa, and no charging infrastructure in a Chilean desert.
She had to use alternative charging solutions such as direct current fast chargers, household outlets, solar panels, and portable battery packs. Alfred hopes her journey will encourage more people to drive electric. But you know who's earned a trip to the spa? Ihor Veris. The Chilliwack Ultra Marathon runner just placed first at the infamous Barkley Marathons in Tennessee. He spoke with Gloria Makarenko about the experience.
I guess the body achieves what the mind believes, right? And at some point, my feet started blistering. The bottom of them developed trench feet. So it's basically like blisters at the bottom of my feet because of all the wet conditions and not being able to change socks frequently enough.
Veris was the first Canadian to complete this grueling race. It's only about 100 miles, and runners have to finish it in under 60 hours. They often have to go without sleep for nights on end and run 24 hours straight to finish on time. Nope, not doing it. No. Sun runs enough. That's okay. Trench foot, too. Good Lord.
Yeah, the trench foot thing is crazy.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Can we just go skiing? That's better. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBCGM, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
We'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.